Well, hello and welcome back. Today I have a Smith Corona Skywriter in front of me. This belongs to a member of our local typewriter society. These machines, like Skywriters, were not built to the same standard or intended for the same purpose or use case as larger machines built for professional use, for instance. They were built for students, home typists, people that need ultra portability over quality of typing experience. That being said, I'd like to discuss today the use case for small, lightweight typewriters in your creative process. Because while a larger machine might mechanically be a better typewriter, there might be a use case for these very small, lightweight machines that might enhance your creative process better than one of those larger machines. Let's talk about this. Stay tuned. Well, I have an example of two very small, lightweight typewriters, the Skywriter on your left and a Hermes Rocket on your right. Both of these machines were actually made in England, which is interesting. They both have the same keyboard layouts, including margin release on the left and backspacer on the right. Same exact key layout. Really, the only feature that is different between the two machines is the Skywriter is a single line machine. So in single line spacing, you're going a whole line, it only makes one click, and you have a choice between single and double. Whereas on the Rocket, it is a half line machine. So single line spacing is click, click, 2 clicks. So you can actually do 1 or 1.5 line spacing. Other than that, they're very, very similar to each other. The type bars on both machines are quite short compared to a bigger machine, and the platen rollers are quite skinny. In fact, the Skywriter is probably one of the skinniest that I've seen. Even my MJ Roy is probably about the same size as the Skywriter's. Very, very skinny platen roller, which is going to be a problem with using stiffer sheets of paper, for instance. So both of these were considered travel typewriters, or very portable, lightweight machines, and their primary use case is that you can take them around and still type. But how good are they, and what kind of limitations do they have for the writer? Well, one of the limitations I've noticed with very small typewriters is the strength of the springs that are used in the machine tend to be much lighter. I saw this problem with my Groma Colibri. Several of the springs in the mechanism were so weak. For instance, the one that provides spring tension on the escapement rocker plate, it was so weak that on a bouncy table, the typewriter would skip because the escapement rocker spring was so light, it was bouncing. This Skywriter, the spring roller for the line spacing detent is very light in tension. And what I was noticing, I was typing with some 30-pound laser paper on this machine yesterday, and when you first do a carriage return, it wouldn't center, the detent roller wouldn't center between the teeth of the line spacing sprocket very well because the paper is so stiff. And once I switched over to a thinner, lighter paper like newsprint paper, it was able to center itself on the line much better. So I was having the problem at the left margin, the line would start out and kind of just move down to where it should have been slowly. And that was all because the spring tension is quite weak. So right here, the line starts high on the left and it kind of drifts down a little bit as it goes to the right, due to the fact that this paper is 30-pound paper, pretty stiff, and it's resisting the spring tension of the line spacing detent roller. So this machine really likes to use thinner paper. Well, here's an example of the same Skywriter printed onto thin newsprint paper. And the thing you'll notice is it is sufficiently neat. It's a dark imprint. It's very readable, even though there's a little bit of up and down erratic position problems with the individual letters. It is very sufficient for first draft private use typing. You'll find similar issues on typewriters like the Hermes Rocket or Baby. Spring tensions are quite weak and they're not built to the same rugged forces that a large desktop typewriter would be built to, for instance. Another issue is going to be the keyboard size, the key spacing, and how close the tiers of keys are to one another. We were using this Skywriter yesterday at our pop-up type-in. I tried to touch type with it initially, but I was having issues, and we kind of decided that machines like this, because the keys are closer together and I have big kind of these clumsy sausage fingers, it's just better to use two-finger typing, index finger typing on a machine like this. So one thing I've noticed with many, but not all, very small lightweight portables, oftentimes the build quality is not as good as larger machines, especially regarding metallurgy and the grade of metals. But that's not universally true. I think the small Olympia SFs and Splendid seem to be built quite well. The Skywriter, I noticed, has quite a bit of slop in the slots of the segment, and the type bars are a fairly lower grade of metal, so it's easier for things to get out of alignment. In fact, the type alignment on this Skywriter is slightly janky a little bit. It's not like what you would expect with a desktop professional machine. And the Hermes Rocket, on the other hand, it also has a little bit of alignment issues too. The metallurgy is a little softer, and there's a little more slop in the type bars, and the letters don't always line up perfectly every time. This line here, right below the gap, that is an underscore, and the underscore prints nice and evenly. However, the dash or the hyphen below it, you can see the individual printed characters vary up and down erratically. And this is due to excessive wear on the fulcrum rod where the type bars hinge. It just makes an erratic movement of the type bar. Sometimes it prints a little too high, sometimes a little too low. And then just to test it out, I did some periods. The periods are also, they do erratic up and down, a little kind of waver slightly up and down, so they're not perfect either. But the letter H, on the other hand, the letter H is very straight. So it depends on the individual character as to how its hinge point at the fulcrum rod has worn over time. And I attribute this to slightly softer metallurgy used in these lightweight portables. There's quality issues on both of these machines with either letter alignment or the imprint quality. And if you were using one of these for a professional type of work, you probably wouldn't be satisfied with it. If you were a secretary, for instance, back in the day, one of these machines would not satisfy your requirement to produce excellent professional looking copy that you could send out to a client, for instance. They weren't intended for that. In fact, professional typewriters, that is, typewriters intended for professional uses, the big desktop standard machines were built to a higher standard so that they did produce smoother, neater imprinting. What kind of people are using these typewriters today? A lot of people, collectors, students, novices in typewriters, anybody that wants a mechanical typewriter that they can take with them fairly easily is attracted to a typewriter like this. And not just bloggers and like typewriter hobbyists, but I know our friend Matthew, who owns this Skywriter, he himself is a writer. Not just a typewriter collector, typewriter hobbyist. So I think Matthew's case is really good for why he would be satisfied to use a Skywriter or any small, lightweight typewriter that might not produce the professional looking, perfect copy, is because his use case is he's using it in the early stages of the creative writing process. Nobody else is going to see that printing except him. He's going to take that printing, he's going to recopy it, he's going to edit it, he'll eventually type it into a computer when he goes into the finishing steps of his work. But he uses typewriters in the early stages of his creative process, and they don't have to have perfect imprint. For Matthew's purposes, it doesn't matter. As long as it puts down inked letters on paper that you can read. The same thing goes with any other kind of ultra portable like this Hermes Rocket or any other kind of machine like that, is if you're not typing for public consumption, then it doesn't really matter. As long as it produces legible, fairly neat copy, you can use it for your private use, for your creative use. This might be why these small machines are attractive to some kinds of writers, because I like to write out in other locations. maybe getting away from my domestic situation helps me to open up my mind. Maybe being visually stimulated by seeing other people's other scenes, other things going on around me in public helps me to trigger new thoughts and creative ideas that I can use on my work. Perhaps that's the reason. I don't know. But there are a number of people that like to write in public, maybe coffee shops, cafes, or whatever. And for them, for that purpose, small, lightweight machines like this are really great. There is, though, another type of writer, no pun intended, who write at home. They have like an office situation at home or a writing station, and they like to use the best machines that they can that are reliable and that they're comfortable with using, and that might be larger machines. And I would say if your writing situation is fixed at a fixed location in your home, you probably don't need an ultra portable machine or a small machine. Whatever the best machine is for typing with, which most likely is going to be a larger machine. The intrinsic compromises that come with these very small manual typewriters is a price you pay for them being portable and lightweight. And so if portability, carryability is important to you, these can work in your creative workflow. But there will be compromises. You will not be able to necessarily have bichrome or tabs, things like that. The touch may not be as good as on another machine, a bigger machine. The type alignment, the quality of the imprinting may not be as good, but if it's a rough draft for your private use in your writing process, that may not be a limitation for you. So I kind of started with small typewriters, and I slowly learned to appreciate bigger typewriters, to the point where now I have an SG-1 Olympia. I really like it as well, and I like the Type Bar electrics. I think they're fantastic if you're going to be situated in a fixed location, a desk or table in your home to be writing. I love big machines, big typewriters, but I still have a collection of small ones. In fact, over my shoulder on the bookcase over there are a number of my ultra portables in my collection, which I love to use also. I welcome your comments down below. What do you think about the writing process, and how good of a typewriter do you have to write creatively? What are your thoughts about that? Down below, I'd love to hear your comments. And as always, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. And bye-bye for now.